Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company run by Joe Ross, a former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, and a guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. Guys, check out our Black Knight Nation YouTube. It's jumping. I've been at the last 3 scrimmages. I posted some shorts on some plays. I have some interviews up with players. Coach Monken's interviews are up there. Man, there's a decent amount of stuff up there from the preseason. If you check it out, our numbers and subscribers are growing there. We appreciate everybody that's been following us along the way to the preseason. And now we're just if I do the math, 5 days away, maybe 4.5 days or whatever. Friday night is the season opener for Army. And to be honest, guys, it's come up on me really fast. I was just talking to somebody about it. I mean, I'm like, we got some time still. And then, you're the Friday night before the opener against Tarleton State. Tarleton State's playing yesterday, and now we got Army beginning its campaign in a couple days. So just at the end of this week coming up. So we're the kind of I'm pretty fired up for this season because I don't know. I'm not expecting 12-2, but we really kind of are interesting to see what's going to happen with the offense. We think the defense is going to be pretty good, but there's some new guys there. I don't know. Maybe I'll get your kind of first takes on, the excitement of the season come up. Cuthbert from SSN Army is here with us, and Seth Middleton from Black Knight Nation. I should have introduced you guys a long time ago. Cuthbert, give me your kind of quick thoughts on like your first take, so to speak.
Yeah, 10,000 feet, go Army, beat everyone. I think that we are undervalued this year. I think we're flying a little bit under the radar. I think that's right where we want to be. I look at Navy, and don't get me wrong, they're bringing back a lot of talent, but they're going to be circled on every single team's schedule this year. And, that's one more year of Newberry's offense and Blake Horvath they got on tape. I think us not being on people's radar is, as I said, it's right where we want to be. I think with what we're returning, as you said, Sal, on defense, we're going to be solid again. Nate Woody, at the helm there on the D. Our offensive line, I think, is going to be strong. I think our backfield is going to be strong despite the loss of Udo. We can get into the details about that later. Obviously, the biggest question mark is going to be at quarterback. We know that Dwayne Coleman is going to be starting. He's not going to be the second coming of Bryson Daly. Bryson Daly is a once-in-a-generation quarterback in terms of his leadership, his talent, his ability, and how perfectly he fit into the scheme and ethos of Army. But I think that we're going to do really well. And I'm just going to say off the bat, I think our floor this year, before we get to the postseason, is going to be 7 wins. I think that's our floor. I could easily see us winning 8, 9, potentially even 10 games. And I think based on our schedule, we should be considered a dark horse to return to the American Championship. I'm a glass half full guy. I drink the Kool-Aid. I readily admit it. But that's what I'm seeing for the year. And I couldn't be more excited for the game against Tarleton State.
Yeah, before we get Seth's first take, guys, if you're watching right now and you have any questions, comments, predictions, please send us it below. I'm not sure if we have the super chat going on this, but if we do have the super chat going, please feel free to donate and support us. Seth, your first take on the upcoming season.
Sure. Thank you. And I'm glad to be back with you guys. Let me just say it. I'm spoiled. Last year was a fantastic year, 12-2. Of course, you had the Navy loss, which was terrible. And Notre Dame, it's a different type of team now with a professional team, basically. But I'm spoiled rotten. They won the American in their first year out. They were undefeated in the American. It was a bizarre game played on Friday night to win the championship, but they won it against Tulane, and that's great. This year we don't have Bryson back, and that scares me a little bit. But I do see a good defensive team back. I see I think we'll be fine on the offensive line. I'm excited about the slot backs and even the receivers. I think we'll get a little bit more action than they traditionally get at West Point. And the fullbacks, I agree. I think we'll see some good fullbacks. To me, the big question does remain the quarterback and whether Coleman can do it and stay healthy in a offense that utilizes the quarterback more than other schools do in terms of running and getting beat up. So I'm concerned about that. It's a little bit tougher schedule. starting with this week, Tarleton State won 42-0 on Saturday against Portland State. I have no idea how good Portland State is, but I know that Tarleton is ranked 8th in the FCS, and that's pretty good. They are coming into our stadium. I'm excited about that. And then we go right after get Kansas State, which lost a nail biter to a good Iowa State team. So my first reaction is I'm excited. My floor is probably 6. I'm hopeful for 8 wins, but nothing would surprise me here with this team in terms of maybe going further, go on the upside. I think the downside is, 5 or 6. We should win easily, and not easily, but win. And then who knows? Could we go 10-2 in regular season? Anything's possible here.
Let's talk about the quarterbacks right now. We'll go right to it. Dwayne Coleman, Monken, Coach Jeff Monken named the starting quarterback. I have a story on our website today about sophomore quarterback Ethan Washington. Unfortunately, is going to miss this season with a knee injury. Ethan was running a play on the outside in the first scrimmage. It was a non-contact injury, and he suffered a season-ending knee injury. It's a big blow to Army because coaches had a lot of high hopes. I wouldn't say high hopes. They expected a lot out of Ethan Washington this season. It wasn't like high hopes. They thought that he was, according to Coach Monken, he was 1A, 1B with Dwayne Coleman in that first preseason scrimmage. And it was a QB competition. It was a QB battle. And Ethan Washington's a 6'1", 205-pound athlete, dual threat guy, can run, can pass, probably is the best thrower on the Army football team. Might have been the best thrower on the Army football team last season, with all due respect. And now their room is not very deep. Now they have 6 quarterbacks. Now they have Dwayne Coleman, the senior, is going to start. Cale Helms, the junior, is going to be the number 2. Zach Mundell, who's a junior athletically, he missed last season with a knee injury. He was a slot receiver 2 years ago. He's still getting the reps back at QB, getting comfortable at QB. And then it's 3 freshmen. It's 3 freshmen behind those guys. And watching those 3 freshmen in the scrimmages, there's potential there. But are they ready to are you ready to throw them into a game early in the season? Probably not. So that's kind of where Army's quarterback situation is. I do want to say a couple things about Dwayne Coleman, but first I'll throw it to Cuthbert about, just a little bit about his feeling about under center for Army.
Well, I think Dwayne Coleman was I think he was the natural choice. Obviously, I don't live close enough to West Point to have been able to watch any of the scrimmages. Obviously, you hear through the grapevine, we were hearing it as early as late last season about Ethan Washington. As you said, Sal, it was a 1A, 1B, tight race over who was going to get that starting position. I'm not surprised at all that it was Dwayne Coleman. Even, Ethan Washington, I'm so sorry to hear about the injury. I understand that, this is ending his season, and obviously I wish him nothing but the best and a healthy recovery, get him back into fighting form. But I'm not surprised at all that Dwayne Coleman was chosen. He is a rising firstie. He's been on the team. He has, he's got experience with that win last year against Air Force. Admittedly, that was a game in which he was taking the game almost entirely from shotgun as opposed to under center. That was also a game that we had. Even though we were using shotgun instead of under center, it was a very conservative game plan. The idea was, risk small, win small, but get the W. It worked perfectly. We got the W. He obviously he's not going to be Bryson Daly 2.0, but I have every confidence in the world in him. He as I said, he's game tested. He's got experience. Even though that entire game was in shotgun, he's been running the offense under center at practice for 4 years. So I think he is going to be great at quarterback. And I think we may have to shift the offense a little bit just because he doesn't have Daly's skill set. So there might be a little more reliance on running or potentially passing. But when I look at who's coming back in terms of those skill positions, the loss of Kanye Udo is terrible. But we've got Hayden Reed, who I think is maybe the most under the radar Army player coming into 2025. He's another rising firstie. He was putting up 100-yard games as a sophomore. He is battle tested. He is ready to do some of that north-south running that we had hoped maybe the Kanye Udo would do this year. I think he's going to have a huge breakout year. We've got Noah Short coming back, Jake Rendina, who has an unbelievable amount of playing time, though not very many carries. Coach Monken's been talking about him coming back a little bit leaner, a little bit more ready to run, ready to carry that ball a little more. And I have all the faith that Cody Worley is going to be able to massage this offense into place to really utilize the skill positions that we have and the talents who are coming back, because every year is going to be a different team. And Monken says this all the time, that, week to week, it's a different team, let alone year to year. And our coaching staff is so great at tailoring what we do, our play selection, and what we focus on to the talents of our players. Again, I drink the Kool-Aid, glass is always half full. But I think Coleman is a great selection to be the starter, and I've got every confidence in him.
Yeah, a couple things about Dwayne Coleman before I go to Seth. I talked to Dwayne for like 5 minutes after the Friday scrimmage, and I started it out with, I just want to get to know Dwayne Coleman, the person, not necessarily the quarterback. And man, the 5 minutes I had talking with him were so engaging. It's hard. If you talk to Dwayne Coleman for even 30 seconds, it's hard not to root for this guy. It really is hard not to root for this guy. He has, he's a good leader. He's got good command of the offense. He's a smart player, Coach Monken says. He's got a lot of background where he started playing when he was super young in Detroit, Michigan with his family. I think brothers, cousins, moved to San Antonio. He wasn't recruited a lot. He was recruited late by Army. He was committed to a Division II school and was going to go through the ROTC program because his mom's in the Air Force. So he was already going to serve his country before he even thought about playing for Army. He was on, this is a little spoiler, some people might know this about Dwayne, the show Friday Night Tykes. I don't know if you remember that show. It was a show, I believe on like Discovery or something. He was on that show. His team was on that show. His San Antonio team was on that show. And Dwayne told me when he played on that team, he would play any position on the field that they needed him to play back then. So, I mean, I'm going to write a story on Dwayne. I talked to Jake Rendina about him. Man, it's hard not, like I said, you root for a kid like this to have success. And he's waited his senior year for this time, right? He's waited for this moment. Yeah, he got his one start against Air Force when Bryson Daly was banged up, but now this is his team. This is Dwayne Coleman's team. And so he's got to lead this offense. He doesn't have to do anything out of his character for this team. Like you said, the weapons are there. He has to make sure the offense runs efficiently. He has to make sure the offense doesn't turn the ball over. He's got to make sure the offense can keep it Army on schedule. You don't want a lot of negative plays. You don't want those pitches, or you don't want those reverse plays for negative. You don't want any negative yardage plays. You want to keep the ball moving forward, whether it's 1, 2, 3 yards of carry, whatever it is at the beginning. And I think that if he can do that, Army is not going to light up the scoreboard, right? But they're going to be efficient enough with a decent, pretty good defense to win some games. I don't know what you think. Here you go, Seth. I'll throw it to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. This is definitely Dwayne Coleman's team, and I totally agree with everything you said. It's really on the coaching staff, the offensive coaching staff, and Monken to make sure that they put plays in that take advantage of what Coleman can offer. He's not Bryson Daly. He's not that big bruising guy who can go up the middle for 5 yards when you need 4 and he gives you 5. He's going to be more an outside guy. I expect more passing from him. To the outside, I expect some different types of plays, and to rely on the fullbacks. Talking about Jake Rendina and Hayden Reed, to rely on these guys. So, but I'm going to put it on the offensive coaching staff to come up with plays. Army's going to win if they don't turn the ball over and they maintain possession for as long as they can. That's traditional Army football over the years. They got away from it a couple of years ago. It didn't work. They went back to it last year, and it worked great for them. And then, of course, having a good defense, which bent but didn't break last year a lot of times. So if they can do that again, control the ball to your point, don't keep fumbles to a minimum, and hold on to possession. Long drives will do it for Army again this year. Because again, these teams don't know what they're facing, with the exception of Navy and Air Force. They don't know what they're facing game to game when they meet teams. I know they're playing them every year now, but it's something totally different than what they used to. And remember, a lot of these kids are new at other schools, so I think he's the key. The offensive line is extremely important again. They were great last year. I expect them to be very good this year. And then, of course, our defense. If it breaks and doesn't bend again, we could be a 10-game winning season or more. Who knows? And win the championship. This is not a great league. We'll get into that later, I think. It's a good league. Yeah, it's a good league. So Army and Navy can do damage in the American.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cuthbert. Go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, Sal, just to put a button on the discussion of Dwayne Coleman, something I had meant to get to and I forgot. If you go back and you watch the post-game press conference following the 2024 Air Force game, at the end of the press conference, Kanye Udo made a point when it was time, when all the questions were done and it was time for him and Dwayne Coleman to get up and head out. He made a point of making sure everybody stopped and took note of Dwayne Coleman and what he did for the team and his leadership capabilities and how much the team rallied around him, and didn't just rally around him because they needed to, but because of his leadership. And so, Sal, when you talk about it's hard not to root for this guy, I think that's the same thread. That's the same vein of thought that we have seen here. You know, he's had so many years on the team to learn this system. So I just wanted to say that one more time, just to reiterate about his character and the value that he brings. You know, even if he can't get us the 5 yards when we need 4, you know, when Daly could, and who's to say he can't? I mean, let's get him out there and get him on the field, because every year is a new year, and I see big things for us.
Yeah,
a couple more. Remember this name. If I could say, just remember this name, Bryson Luter. I interviewed the kid early in practice. He played at the prep school last year. I believe he was the starter. Is that true, Sal? Was he the starter?
He was the one. Yeah, he was the one in number. Him and God's Power. You know, they were the top quarterbacks at the prep school. I know that the staff was pretty high on Bryson. I know that. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, Dwayne Coleman's going to be his team. We got to keep him healthy. If he doesn't healthy, somebody else has to step up. Remember this name. He's a freshman, played at the prep school last year. I talked to him. I love the kid. The enthusiasm he had, the maturity he had for a 19-year-old or 18-year-old kid was amazing. And who knows? I know the coaching staff is high on him.
I think with Bryson Luter, you've seen like him. He's running some of the scout team stuff, and against the one defense in scrimmages, he's moving the football. He's getting first downs. I think the second scrimmage, they converted the first 2 or 3 third downs with Bryson Luter with the scout team against the first team defense. You know, it took the first team defense a little bit of time to get going against Bryson Luter. And even Caleb Fortner said, you know, I think Caleb Fortner and even Gavin Shields were like, hey, you got to give that kid some credit. You know, you got to give that kid some credit. And I think that, you know, I'm probably speaking a little out of turn right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we hit maybe the first third of the season, first quarter of the season, and he's the number 2 quarterback. And he's the number 2 quarterback. And he's ready to go in and he's ready to play. I'm not saying he going right in against Tarleton State, but Bryson Luter is probably closer to the field than some Army fans, some Army opponents might think this season. That's how I'll put it. Dwayne Coleman, real quick, one more thing about, and you'll find out this in the story I'm writing. Family is really big to Dwayne. He plays for his family. He plays for his parents. He plays for his grandfather, Dwayne Coleman the first, who taught him some of the game. And there's also, you know, he plays for his fiance and his child. So I mean, there's a lot to Dwayne Coleman. There's a lot of really good. I mean, I can't say enough about the story that's going to be on. I can't say enough that I'm going to write, and I can't say enough about Dwayne Coleman. The backfield, we went through Hayden Reed. Hayden Reed is the guy who, when Kanye Udo transferred out to Arizona State, he lined up as fullback in the bowl game against Louisiana Tech and had a 100-yard game. I believe it was the second 100-yard game of his career. But he's ready. You know, he's a guy who's going to give you a lot. Coach Monken says he can do everything. You want him to block, he'll block. You want him to run inside, he'll run inside. You want him to try to get the ball outside, fine. You want him to put him in a pattern and go out along the sideline. We saw him play slot back last year. when along with Kanye Udo in the same backfield. So Randina, I will say, last year Bryson Daly scored 32 touchdowns. And when it was short yardage time, fourth and short inside in the red zone, third and short, he got the ball and he would probably put it into the end zone most of the time. Jake Rendina is going to score touchdowns for Army. He's going to be their short yardage guy. He's going to be their guy in the goal line. I'm not ready to say he's going to have Jacoby Buchanan stats yet, but I think that they need guys to score on this team. And Noah Short and Hayden Reed, sure, but they're going to need some other guys to step up. And I think Jake Rendina is a guy who, I look at the way he's running this preseason, and it's different than his vision's better. I'll leave it at that. His vision's better. His footing's a little bit better than it was last year. And if he can bounce out into the open field and you're going to try to tackle Jake Rendina. Now, regardless of what he weighs, if he lost 20 pounds, if he's 235, 240, this guy was a power lifter in high school. He's one of the strongest kids on the team. Him and Briggs Bartosh, they lift with the offensive linemen in the offseason. They don't lift with the running backs and fullbacks. He's a strong dude, enthusiastic dude. Man, I want to see his celebrations when he gets into the end zone, Jake Rendina, because it's going to be pretty fun to watch. I think at first, when I was thinking, I'd say maybe 5 touchdowns rushing this year for Jake Rendina. I might double that. Maybe it depends on how the season starts, because if Army, you're going to need somebody to finish off these drives. And Hayden Reed's the guy. Sure, Hayden Reed's the guy. If you want short yardage too, Jake Rendina can spell him. You can almost play those guys interchangeable. Carson Smith, we didn't talk about, junior guy, about 230 pounds, another power back. Briggs Bartosh is a change of pace back, sophomore. Looks like a slot back, plays like a fullback. That's all I'm going to say about Briggs Bartosh, So something that the offense would really looking forward to seeing who's going to step up. And I think Jake Rendina is a guy. Wide receivers, tight ends, guys, we could talk about a little bit. Casey Reynolds is a guy who was lost to graduation that I don't think we talk enough about, because Casey Reynolds really stretched the defenses, right? When the defenses were coming in and playing the run, he had some, everybody averaged like 24 or 5 yards a catch last year or something like that. Does Army have that guy this year? Liam Fortner is, a plus blocker as a wide receiver. He hasn't really gotten too many opportunities to catch the football in his career. This year, I mean, he's a senior. It's time for Liam Fortner to, make some catches. There's some guys that are playing wide receiver now in the scrimmages that Army fans don't know about. They Brady Anderson, Kurt Thompson, these are guys that are going to get game reps. And these are guys who are making catches in the scrimmages. Brady Anderson's towing the sidelines. Kurt Thompson's catching the play in traffic. We'll see. Is Army going to throw the ball 1,000 times a game? No. But when they throw the ball, it needs to be caught. It needs to be efficient. And if it's 5 yards, a first down pass for 5 yards, Seth, I love like mixing it up a little bit, not fullback dive on first down every time. I like mixing it up. So that's where we're at wide receivers.
Now, to your point, I'm looking at the roster here, and I read some stuff on it. These Army teams now are so much bigger than they were 10, 20 years ago. The offensive line, I believe every starter is over 300 pounds, and the backups are over 300 pounds. You have 240-pound running backs all over the place. These are bigger kids than we used to get at West Point. And not only are they bigger, they're more talented. And so that goes in. That's a plus in 2 cases.
Real quick, they might not come in as big. Connor Hughes is a big part of that, the strength and conditioning coach. Connor Hughes deserves a lot of credit for that, because some of these kids aren't coming in at the weight they are. Like, look at the Teddy Williams. The guy was playing tight end last year. He's probably, I forget what he told me, he was 245, 250 maybe. By spring, he was 275. Now he's 300 pounds. Now he's playing right tackle at 300 pounds. So, the offensive line, to talk about tight end real quick, Parker Poloski is going to be the starting tight end last year. He was kind of the number 2 last year behind David Crossan. He played a lot of snaps last season. He's not like going to be a first-time guy to the field. he probably is more of a pass catching threat than Army's had in tight end. Maybe he's not Josh Lingenfelter in size, maybe, but he has some pass catching ability, maybe similar to Josh Lingenfelter. So we'll see how that plays out.
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw two tight ends in some situations. With Parker. By the way, shout out to his parents who I know watch us, and I met him down in Boca for the Army Florida Atlantic. They have a lot of big guys at tight end, and I would not be surprised if Army lines up in a two tight end situation more than we've seen before.
And if I was going to put out a depth chart real quick before we talk about offensive line, I think sophomore Noah Pryor might be the number 2 right now. And he caught a 30-yard pass from Cale Helms in the scrimmage, their second Army scrimmage. But I was watching him a little bit blocking in the third scrimmage. It was more of a dress rehearsal, that third scrimmage, but still just going through the motions, so to speak. And he looks like he could be a pretty effective blocker, bigger kid. So Noah Pryor, a lot of guys have moved on from Army. They had, we're going to hear some names that maybe we haven't heard about yet, but guys who are younger and are going to get their chance. So, Cuthbert, why don't you tell us a little bit about the offensive line? I want to keep it rolling here. So,
well, obviously last year, 2024 is the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. There is no bar higher than that. I think the likelihood that we repeat as the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line is slim to none, unfortunately. And I don't say that to disparage our offensive line coming into the 2025 season. That's just facts being facts. That said, we have quite a bit of experience and talent coming back between Brady Small and Paolo Generali, obviously starters last year. We also have Will Jeffcoat and Ned Brady, who are projected to be starters this year. These are guys who have quite a bit of game experience. What may be the biggest issue for our offensive line, despite the loss, obviously, of some talent last year due to graduation, is the loss of Matt Drinkle, who is now obviously head coaching in the MAC. I wish him nothing but the best. I would love for them to do well, and nobody, not a greater guy, would deserve it over him. So we lost Matt Drinkle. That's obviously a big loss, but we kept Mike Vitti. So the coaching is still going to be there, and we have a lot of talent coming back. I think that our offensive line, I don't want to sound, I don't want to be so cliche, but I don't see this as a rebuild. I see this as a reload, honestly. And to the point Seth made about some of the weights that we're seeing in the weight training program that's going on right now at West Point, I think our offensive line is going to be stout. I think it's going to be very stout this year. And I think a lot of the defenses that we're going to be seeing, they're going to have their hands full with our offensive line. I think we're going to control the offensive line. And I think that we're going to be able to run that typical Army offense where we can eat clock, we can control the game, we can control the ball, we can grind down their defenses. And whether we're going to win big like we did last year, in many cases, unexpectedly, we were not expecting to put up 56 points, but we were able to. I think we're probably going to be seeing a lot of closer wins, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot of wins. We're going to be able to control that ball with our experienced backfield and our experienced offensive line.
Real quick on the offensive line, when you're bringing the guy back, Brady Small, entering his third season, his junior year, has started every game in the Army since he's come to West Point. You're in pretty good shape. And Paolo Generali was named to the Sports Illustrated preseason first team All-American. Paolo Generali, I said this I was on a radio spot in Omaha, Nebraska last week. And I was saying Paolo Generali could be an All-American before, like a first team legit All-American by the time his Army career is over. And that guy is playing in the NFL. He's playing. The guy is on the freaks list the freaks list that comes out every year. He's on the freaks list. And he's benched over 505 pounds. He benched 505 pounds. That's his max out. And I have to write a story on Paolo. I've been meaning to do it. I have some good stuff about him. But, when you have those guys up the middle, and Jeffcoat, who started when he was younger at Army, has been waiting his chance after battling back from an injury, up the gut, the strength of your team is going to be those interior offensive linemen. Then that puts a little bit of less pressure on first-year starters. We talked about Teddy Williams, right? Converted tight end being the right tackle. And at the left tackle right now, Henry Appleton, a junior, is going to be the starting left tackle right now. You're going to have guys, maybe they rotate guys in that tackle. We'll see how that plays out. They have got, at least you mentioned Ned Brady, Cuthbert, he could be in the mix. And Xavier Archowski is a sophomore who they like. And there's a couple other young offensive linemen that they're pretty high on. Are they ready to start the season and go right in and get going on the offensive line? Maybe not. But I think they have some young depth there that if they need it, the guys are, like you said, that you got 6'7", 300-pound sophomores on the offensive line, guys who they're really high on, guys who had offers. They didn't have to come to Army to play. And we'll see what happens with the offensive line. I think with like Brady and Paulo, I mean, those guys are like, those guys they could be playing almost just about anywhere in the country. How
we
good they
have a freshman on the team. I don't know. Maybe Sal, you do. Offensive lineman Zach Tomasovich. You know the name?
Yeah, it's a guy who they were pretty high on at prep school. Do I watch him a little bit during the scrimmage just because I was watching what the lines warm up and see like who's on the first team line, who's on the second team line, who's on the third team line, and they have the scout team line. I think he's a guy who they like. Do I think he's ready to play right away? No, but it's a name for the future. He's a name.
6'5", 327 pounds as a freshman. Think about that.
But real quick, I don't like when guys just look at weights, heights, and weights. That's not a way to judge an offensive line.
I agree.
That might be the old.
It doesn't hurt. I mean, those numbers don't hurt though.
It doesn't hurt.
It's how good. It's your technique too. I mean, you could be 300 and I don't know who's the player that's 480 pounds in the NFL and needs to drop weight. Does that make because he's I don't know. I don't like basing my offensive line on height and weight. It's great that Army has size because you can go back before Coach Monken. The coach before Coach Monken didn't think that size would work. Bigger offensive lineman would work at Army. Well, guess what? It's smash mouth football will work at West Point, and Coach Monken's proved that.
Army's size is probably as big or bigger than most teams in the American Conference. Okay. With a couple
not really. But I don't care.
But that helps. That didn't go on 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Their size comparable to defensive lines. Yeah. But not like still the Tulanes and the Memphises are still going to put like 330-pound tackles out on the ends. And they're still going to be.
UAB and North Texas, maybe not. We'll see. I mean, Charlotte, I don't know. I'm just saying it certainly helps to have size. You're playing, like you said, smash mouth football. You got to be big and you got to be good. And, come in and you're big and they make them bigger. And then it's up to the coaching staff to, teach these kids. Freshmen and sophomores.
Sorry, Seth. One more thing. When you have a guy like Paolo Generali in your weight room, it motivates other guys. Mm-hmm. So it motivates other guys to he's pushing other guys, even the younger guys. So the younger guys who are just might be coming in from the high school or prep school that are freshmen, they're going to, I don't care if maybe they gain 10, 15 pounds, but that weight is going to be like, you're just going to be, they're going to be stronger. They're just going to be stronger with a guy like Paolo Generali and guys like Brady Small in the weight room. And even a Jake Rendina. When Jake Rendina is bouncing into the offensive lineman weight lines, that's definitely, I don't think we really take into account what they do in the preparation for the preseason. They take classes, they do their Army training, they take classes, they're in the weight room with Coach Hughes. Those moments in the weight room are just as big as those moments in the winter weight room where they get bigger, stronger, and they get ready for the season. So looking forward to it. Guys want to talk some defense?
Sure.
The defensive line, at Army, you lose a couple players, but they have some experience back. And to me, Cuthbert, I don't know how you feel about this. It starts with Cody Harris-Miller. Starts at the nose tackle. That's a pretty important position where you have to absorb some double teams, multiple blocks to open up for those inside linebackers to do their damage. So Cody was a little bit banged up toward the end of last season. I believe it was an ankle injury. He did play in the Army-Navy game. He probably wasn't at 100%, but he wanted to be in there. He wanted to play. And when he's healthy, he's a difference maker. He's a very active guy. He's a bigger defensive tackle, a nose tackle for Army, and active. And I think that he, again, with the defense, we talk about the strength up the middle for Army's offense. When you go Cody Harris-Miller and you go Andon Thomas and Caleb Fortner, your senior captains and your returning starters at inside linebacker, you put senior safety Casey Larkin in the backside. That's a pretty strong middle of the defense for Army. That's pretty darn good. And what are your thoughts maybe on the defensive line?
Well, I've been talking quite a bit this podcast about expectations and the fact that Army's flying under the radar in general this year, and that I think that's to our advantage. Unfortunately, I look at the defense, and we have so much talent coming back, and we turned so many heads last year that now my personal expectations for the defense are so high that I can only fear that I'm going to let myself down, if that makes any sense. Coming into 2024, we had no idea what the defense was going to look like. We thought it would be serviceable at best. Turns out they were rock solid. And part of that has to do with our schedule, and part of that has to do with the coaching of Nate Woody and just the leadership we had last year between guys like, DiDomenico. And so, I look this year, I actually calculated it up. And so in terms of starters, we have 3 returning as seniors, two more who are returning as seniors as captains. So we have 3 non-captains returning as seniors, 2 captains obviously returning. We've got a junior returning, who you were just talking about, Sal, Cody Harris-Miller. And then just in terms of guys who weren't starters, so to speak, last year, but had significant gameplay, we got 4 returning as seniors. We've got 2 more returning as juniors. I mean, this defense is somewhat stacked. We lost DiDomenico. We lost Kyle Lewis. Obviously, Elo Madozi transferred to UGA. That speaks to the talent that he brought to the table. Donovan Platt transferred to UVA. That speaks to his talent. So we are losing a lot, but there's so much that's coming back on defense that I think we're going to have a stout defense. I really do. And the bigger question that I have looking at the schedule is going to be some of the newer coaches that we're facing. We got a lot of teams who have brand new coaches coming in, mostly because they lost to Army last year and their coaches were summarily fired following the loss to Army, as happened, 3-4 times. So right, exactly. So how many of these new coaches are going to be implementing new offensive schemes that maybe we haven't seen, maybe we're not familiar with? That being said, this is only our second year in the American Conference. So This is all still kind of new to us to begin with. A lot of variables in the air, but I am pumped about our defense. I think our defense is going to come back strong. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything here, but I think our defense is going to be stout.
I agree. I think we're solid on defense. I think Cody Harris-Miller is a key on the line. I think the two captains as linebackers. These guys are good. I talked to them during the practices, and these guys they're ready to go. They're ready to go a month ago, or almost a month ago, and they're going to lead this team. I think defensively we are solid. Sal, fill us in on the DiDomenico, who's taking his place there.
Yeah, you know what? Colin Madison, senior, right? A guy who saw some playing time last year. I believe he had an interception too. He's been all over the place in these scrimmages, and watching him, he has a good grip on he reads plays well. He's smart. I mean, he's there. It seems like mostly every play. He picked off a pass in the last scrimmage on Friday night, and I think that he's quick. He's fast. He's to the ball right away, and when you got Casey Larkin, a veteran that you can play alongside, and I believe Madison is the free safety, I believe. So he maybe has a little bit more areas to roam around and make plays. We'll see. I think that I didn't think about this before we came on, but he could be a guy that could really make a difference for them, because what he's done, him and Gavin Shields were kind of in spring. They were battling out maybe for that spot along Casey Larkin. His solid play allows Army to move Gavin Shields, a senior with field experience. When Gavin got into games last year, he was knocking down passes. He was around the ball. He was making plays as nickelback, one more sixth defensive back if you want to be technical. So now he's playing at Apache, that hybrid position, linebacker, safety closer to the line. And Gavin Shields seems to be doing pretty well at that position. He seems like he's like, I pretty much see the field from my safety position when I played in the past. Now I'm closer to the line of scrimmage, and I got the help of Fortner and Andon Thomas, to help me out. So I think that real quick, Cuthbert, you were saying like the guys, right? There's some seniors here that have waited their turn, similar to Dwayne Coleman, for their chance to start on a full-time basis. The Colin Matsons, the Gavin Shields, the Eric Fords. Eric Ford might have been that Apache if El Mendoza stayed. El Mendoza transfers. All right, Eric Ford, you were going to be a starter on the defense anyway. You're going to move over to your natural position at rush end. And we saw Eric Ford when he got into games last year, he was getting some pressure on quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure he had at least a sack or two, definitely some hurries. Caleb Fortner says he's really excited about what Eric Ford can bring to this defense. And you look at Justin Weaver getting a chance to play corner. Donovan Platt's gone. Justin Weaver was number 3 last year. Justin Weaver had multiple interceptions last year. I remember Justin Weaver picking off passes in the end zone last year during key moments of the game. You put him beside Jaden Mays, who led the team with 4 interceptions last year, who said, I'll enter the transfer portal, came back to Army, and having one of your starting corners and basically your third corner from last year come back, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid, I think. The defensive line, we'll see. A defensive line, Cody Harris Miller, the outside guys, Jack Latour. We know Jack Latour. Jack Latour's, I think, this is going to be his 3rd season starting. He's pretty much a steady guy, right? You might not call Jack Latour's name too much during games, but he plays his assignments. He's another guy who holds up the line so guys can make plays.
And Latour was a starter last year. So if the defense was stout last year and he started all those games, whether we're calling his name or not, you know what I mean? He might just be another cog in the wheel. But, if the wheel's moving forward, then every cog is vital. So him coming back as a starter. And then Jacob Tugliati, I always get his name wrong.
Tugliati.
He's coming back as a senior this year, probably going to be filling in the role, I would expect, of Kyle Lewis on the defensive line. We'll see. Y'all would have a better sense of that than I do. There's a lot of talent coming back, a lot of experience coming back. And that's really what's so vital for an Army team.
I look at Tugliati as playing Cody Whitaker's role last year, a guy who's got a lot of, who's been on the team for a while, but he might have even started games or in his career, but last year he was in the rotation. He'll move up in the rotation. I think the other defensive end, the Kyle Lewis guy for now, is DeShantez Gray, another senior, a guy who was in the rotation last year, got a little injured last year, maybe didn't play as much last year, senior year. Gonna give it everything. I'm imagining giving it everything he's got, So, and a guy who has some size on the defensive line too. Go ahead, Seth.
Well, I was gonna say every year we sit in the press box first game and we say, okay, there's a hole here, and somebody steps up, especially on defense, especially at cornerback position, it seems. And we're gonna see that again this year, offense and defense. Somebody that we have not talked about yet, or we have not emphasized enough yet, will step up because they grew faster than we expected them to grow from freshman to sophomore year or sophomore to junior year, whatever it might be, even junior to senior year. And that's going to happen. We may not have mentioned the guy yet. We may have, okay, but there may be more than one. It may be 2, maybe 3. The more, the better, right? But we're going to see somebody step up that we didn't say, wow, we're not talking about yet. And that's what's been going on with Army, in the Monken era. And it's worked nicely most of the time, if not all the time.
Yeah, I want to drop some freshman names, some guys. There's a few freshmen on defense that saw some scrimmage snaps with the second team or third teams that might be on special teams this year. And Bryson Banks is a guy who Caleb Fortner said, man, if he was a little taller and maybe just a smidge taller, and maybe he might take my spot. He might start ahead of me. He's a freshman. He's around the ball a lot. He's a brick wall. When he hits somebody, you hear it. If he's going to play special teams and he's going to hit somebody, he's going to get into the game on defense. Everybody in Michie Stadium will know number 48, Bryson Banks, because he is a heavy hitter. He reminds me a little bit of Andrew King. He reminds me a little bit of former Army linebacker Andrew King when it comes to that. So Bryson Banks, you got Zane Tallman on the outside. He's playing an Apache position. Freshman, played through the prep school. Right now, maybe 2 or 3 on the depth chart. Will definitely play some special teams. Julian Porter is a freshman corner to take a look at. Army has Jackson Hammond still at cornerback, right? They have Jabril Williams, a senior, at cornerback, ready to go in, and they have Julian Porter, pushing those guys. So I mean, there's some defense, and we know how Nate Woody's scheme works. He likes to get guys ready. He's not going to worry about who's if somebody goes down the starting defense, he doesn't panic. He has guys ready to play. That's his thing. He likes to go 2 or 3 deep with guys ready to play and not really skip a beat. So some young guys, I'm not saying they're going to play early in the season, but there might be some names that you hear maybe on special teams early and maybe later in the season. Who knows? Maybe they can make a difference for the Black Knights on defense.
There you go.
Special teams?
Yeah, sure.
Dawson Jones, sophomore, looks like the number 1 kicker right now. Watching Dawson Jones in scrimmages and even practice time, he's got a strong leg. And, in the past, I think sometimes if it gets 45 yards or more for Army, they're like, we might go for it. We might go for it on 4th and 4 and 4th and 3 instead of just try to get the 3 points. We'll see if this year Dawson Jones gives them more of an option to kick the 45 to 50-yard field goals. I think he's capable of making those field goals, and I think that I think it'll be something to watch. Last year Trey Granati did a great job. Trey Granati did a great job when he was called upon. He was consistent. He was pretty darn accurate, and he had to take on the kickoff duties after the second game of the season when Anderson Britton went out. Anderson Britton's back. He tore his ACL second game, Florida Atlantic. He's back on the kickoff duties, a senior. Will we see him kick some field goals? Right now, I think it's Dawson Jones's job right now. We'll see how that plays out. And, James Wagenseller, the punter. Cuthbert, if you were at the third scrimmage I was at on Friday, and I saw James Wagenseller roll out like he's going to do a rugby punt, and he's say right around the 50-yard line, and he kicks the rugby punt, and I watched the ball land at about the 2-yard line and start rolling to my left, his right, out of bounds at the 1. I'm like, okay, James Wagenseller is ready for this season. I think that he reminds me a little bit of Zach Harding, the punter from a couple years ago, where Zach Harding was booming. I think he averaged 46 yards a kick or something like that. Army does not want to punt a lot. But James Wagenseller is now a 2-year, going to be in his second year of punting. I think he's under the radar guy on making the biggest improvement from last year to this year, James Wagenseller. I think that he can be a weapon for Army if needed. I believe he's the guy's 6'4", 6'5". He's a big punter. He's got a booming leg. I hope we get to see a little bit of it, because I think that when Zach Harding played, a big deal with him was pitting guys pitting the defense, the opposing team inside the 20-yard line, right, and push them. No touchbacks, pin them inside the 20. I think that James Wagenseller is could be a weapon for Army this year. Special teams, we know the Sauce team, right? Cuthbert and Seth, Sean Saturnio. They block kicks. They're difference makers, the special teams at Army. And Coach Munkin went into a little bit with us at the last scrimmage about what special teams means to him and Coach Saturnio. And, Jabril Williams, is a special teams ace. He seems to be around some big plays in his career. And they're going to need maybe some plays like that this year. That will be difference makers. That'll change the momentums in games. And so we'll see if that happens in special teams. I don't know your guys' thoughts on special teams.
I think the special teams are going to be great this year. Sean Saturnio is maybe the best special teams coach in the country. We've discussed him in the past and just how critical he is to this program, how much the players love him, what he means, what he can bring out of his players. As a special teams coach, you might be dealing with Trey Granati, let's say, who's he's your field goal specialist, but you're also dealing with a lot of those potentially second, third, maybe even fourth string guys who, they're waiting for their chance to make their mark as a cornerback or a slot back. But in the meantime, they're going to be there playing on the special teams. Saturnio is truly a diamond in the rough. When we have potentially someone on deck who could be hitting field goals from 45 plus. I mean, you go from the ghost of Quinn Moretsky, the pride of Honolulu, Hawaii, to Trey Granati, who's forcing fumbles in the American Conference Championship. This just seems to be, the conveyor belt of fantastic special teams. James Wagenseller, I think he is going to be dynamite at punter. I mean, you referenced Harding, a previous punter of Armies. I don't believe that he actually, unfortunately, got any playing time in the NFL, but I do know that he did have a few tryouts with some teams. There was some interest there. I could totally see that from someone like Wagenseller. He only punted, I don't know if actually he did every punt last year. I don't have that written down. We only punted the ball 25 times last year. In 14 games, we had 25 total punts. That is quintessential Army football. And if things go the way they should this year, he might only get 25 punts. So maybe he's not going to get any tryouts because there's just not going to be enough tape on him. But I think that he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, before such your thoughts, Jeff Generali, I was just going to mention Owen Walter because Owen Walter is entering his second year as a long snapper. And when you don't really hear the long snapper's name, he's doing a great job. I don't remember I think he was spot on last year with his snaps. I don't remember in my head in those 14 games. I can't remember one time when the snap wasn't on point from Owen Walter. So, having a guy who's back as your long snapper, I believe he's only a junior. I think is going to be, he had one more year with Army too. He's excellent. Great point by Jeff Generali. Guys, if you're watching us right now, you have any comments, questions, predictions, send us our way. Seth, any thoughts on special teams before
I'm going to agree with you guys. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago that special teams was not a big positive at West Point. And over the last few years, it's become very, very important part of the game. They don't use them that much because Moncton goes for it on fourth down a lot. But when they need to, they do. And they've been performing at above average rates and doing great. So, we're, I think there's a lot of depth there too. So there you go. We got some players coming on.
We really appreciate Captain Caleb Fortner watching our podcast preview. And now we know Owen Walter's a great person off the field. This team is pretty close. This team is really close. Talking to Anna Thomas and Caleb, that's a big part of it. The chemistry is a big part of this team this year. There are really no superstars really on this team. They're all playing for each other like it is most years with Army. But this team, I think, could be a little bit more than that. Before we start a little predictions with our records and maybe briefly go over the schedule and what Army has ahead, I want to just bring up Jimmy Charlo. And even Andre Carter and the guys in the NFL for Army and the guys, Black Knights in the NFL is my hashtag on Twitter. And you look at Jimmy Charlo story, he has a good chance of making the 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills after thinking he might not even play another down of football after an ACL injury in preseason with the Jets last year. He got called a couple days before their first preseason game. Cuthbert, you saw that special teams tackle that he made, right? That hit that he made in his first game.
It was a depleter. You know what I mean? He put him on a Ferris wheel. It was a gorgeous hit, and then he's out there recovering fumbles. I mean, the Army to NFL pipeline is established, and I would be shocked. I mean, I'm not just saying that as a glowing Army supporter, but generally speaking, I watched a good portion of that Bills-Bucks preseason game last night from a fantastic local public house. And, that was not the only play that Charlo made. And I think he's making that roster. And that's That's, I mean, look, it's the NFL. So any team that you make is obviously an accomplishment. But the Bills are a legit team, and that is a serious compliment to him. And I think he's making the roster, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you guys watch Hard Knocks. I don't have HBO Max, but I've seen the clips where, the Bills coach is playing that play in front of the whole team and saying that's what it looks like, and telling Jimmy Charlo, you're going to get more playing time because of that play, and he's getting that impression. It's amazing what one play or a few plays can do, and just knowing Jimmy from the time he was an Army football player, his senior year, how he was a captain, the way he handled himself. He goes about it very businesslike. He goes about it very businesslike. He prepares very well, and it's just fun seeing clips where you see a Bills coach saying, "Good job, Army." Good job. Now he's known as Army around the Bills practice field and stuff. And man, I hope he makes it. Andre Carter's had sacks in the last 2 preseason games. He sacked Clayton Tune, the Cardinals quarterback, my favorite team, last night. I'm like, okay, if it's Andre Carter, I'll let it slide. You got Cole Christensen still out there, John Radigan still out there, Brett Toth still out there. Lucas Scott was doing a great job early in the preseason playing fullback for the Ravens. He was he's an All-American tackle last year on the Joe Moore line. I heard that the Ravens liked him as a fullback during pro day, and what happens? He's doing a pretty good job. I hope he makes their roster. If not, I hope he sticks on the practice squad, but he's a guy that can definitely, help a team. That would be 6 Black Knights in the NFL, I think, if everybody holds true. So just great to see. Seth, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I want to talk about my prediction. You want to get to that now, or you want to just
I was going to ask you if you had any thoughts with the guys playing the NFL, but that's fine.
No, I'm impressed. I mean, you don't have to go back too many years again. Well, Army had nobody in the NFL for decades. Now you got 6 people potentially making teams. How impressive is that? And again, kudos to the coaching staff to take kids who, most of these kids weren't Division 1A recruits in every case. And now you got 6 of them potentially playing at the highest level of football. Kudos to the kids too for doing what they have to do. But there wasn't too many years ago that there was one kid from maybe every service, from the total service academies, 1 or 2 people playing the NFL. Now you have 6 at West Point potentially playing. So kudos to the kids, and kudos to the coaches to develop these kids that they're making the NFL.
And you know what? For the most part, a lot of these guys started as special teams players for Army. They worked their way up through the special teams. Like a Brett Toth, I don't know if Brett Toth was playing special teams as offensive lineman, a tight end, but he probably was on some hands teams back in the day before he turned tackle. So it's great. Coach Monken talked. I was talking with him about Jimmy Charlo a little bit. Maybe for a story I might write on Jimmy. So let's get to the predictions here.
Make one more point about that. Where I went to college. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but they were Division 1. They are Division 1, and I followed the team very closely my whole life, and I have not seen the improvement between a sophomore and junior there anywhere near that I see at West Point in terms of talent. These kids, freshman, sophomore year, they develop them. By the time they get to a junior year, they're capable of playing against top level talent, including a Notre Dame. We know the score, but they didn't embarrass themselves. And I don't see that at a lot of other places. And that's, again, kudos to the players for giving it all that they're all, but also to this coaching staff that continues to take kids who are not Division 1 players when they get here, because nobody else wants them. At least we don't think they're Division 1 players. Nobody else at Division 1 seems to want them except maybe Navy and Air Force. And suddenly they're top players that other schools are trying to get to convince them to go play there. So that's impressive to me. Always has been over the last 5 to 10 years.
It's not everybody. I mean, the Army does have guys that have gotten Power 4 offers, on their roster. Sometimes that narrative is a little bit skewed. I'll just say it there. Before we get into predictions, we have over 1,000 people watching this preview. We really appreciate everybody watching. Army players are watching right now. Army parents are watching right now. Hopefully former players are watching right now. If you want to get in your predictions, now's the time to do it. We're going to get into our predictions for the season. Opener Friday against Tarleton State. We know Tarleton State won 42-0 over Portland State. Real quick, Tarleton State has a former Army player on their roster, Danny Joyner. He's a tight end. He was a freshman in 2021, and he played in one game his freshman year. Then he transferred out. He went back home to Missouri, played out of school in Missouri, and now he's playing like a grad year at Tarleton State. And he caught a touchdown pass in their season opener. And so real quick, I want to say something. This is a little bit off topic, but I see like Army fans get on Twitter or X saying, yeah, let's smash Tarleton State's head in and smash Joyner and his teammates' head in on Friday. Maybe it's a figure of speech. Maybe it's a little overzealous, but come on, guys. Not everybody stays. West Point is not for everybody. Some people get to the school and, some people don't – if a player that's recruited by Army doesn't last for the full 4 years at Army, if he finds a better fit somewhere else and it's before his junior year and he's in class, then, let the guy enjoy some success. Let the guy enjoy some success, please. I don't want –
not against us.
No, I don't want to see Danny Joyner's head smashed in on Friday. I remember when he committed to Army. I think he's the son of a football coach, I believe, in Missouri. So I mean, it's good to see those connections. I like to write or just keep people posted on former Army players and what they're doing because it proves what kind of talent they had on their team. When Cleb Lubin is playing at Louisville this year as a defensive end, he was a freshman inside linebacker for Army. I think he was in the class. I think he would have been a senior this year with the class of Andon Thomas and Caleb Fortner. That's talent. Kamari Copeland, defensive lineman at Virginia Tech. Kanye Udo at Arizona State. Ella Medodes, we already talked about Georgia. All right. Wish them the best. Wish them the best.
Your point, Sal, these guys are leaving because maybe they couldn't play here. Maybe they weren't going to start. Maybe there's some academic reasons. Maybe there's some family reasons. Maybe
we don't know.
But yeah, we don't know. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, God bless them. They came here. They gave it a shot. They went someplace else, someplace better. Hey, the bottom line is Army keeps more players than most schools do percentage-wise. And certainly the starters and and whatnot. Some kids come here and they see they're not going to play. You can't blame them to go someplace else.
And those kids that leave still have connections to the players that are still there. They still follow the team. A lot of those players retweet some of the stuff that we put on Black Knight Nation. They're still, they still have the black and gold in their blood, so to speak. They still have they're still part of Black Knight Nation. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. Curtis Harris, is this your friend Seth there? Curtis Harris saying go Army.
It's good to see you.
Seth has a couple of friends out there. Now, I'm just joking. I'm just joking, Seth.
I'm as surprised as anyone.
Predictions.
We're starting the season the same as every other season.
Let's go, Seth. Why don't you start us off with a prediction? You're good with the scheduling. You know the road games, home games, when they're at.
Let me start off with two things. One is the stadium construction is moving ahead nicely. You guys are going to be impressed. The people come to the stadium to see how far they've gotten along. It's going to be beautiful when it opens up, hopefully next August. And we're really impressed with what they're doing. It took a while to get going, but now they've gotten the framework done, and now they're doing all the stuff they need to do to make this thing beautiful. That's one thing. The second thing is I'm looking at the schedule. And there's a chance that Army could be playing a number of night games. We already know two, one at home on Friday, and then Eastern Carolina on a Thursday night in late September. But UAB, Tulane, and I believe Texas San Antonio have not announced the times for those games, and I'm sure that has to do with television. So there's a chance Army could be playing a lot of night games this year, which is just interesting. But I'll get into it. My prediction for this year is I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say 8-4 or 7-5. I'll go with the 8-4. There's a couple of tough teams on the schedule: K-State, Navy, Tulane. That Curtis will be at. I'll be there too, Curtis. Maybe we'll run into each other. And I think they're going to be it'll be tough games to win. Air Force is always going to be tough playing out there. We should beat them, but who knows? And this week we're playing a pretty good team on Friday night, so we can't look past Carleton State and for K-State next week. So I'm going to go with 8-4. There's a chance this team could be undefeated again in conference. It really depends on what if everything comes together. But I'm going to say 8-4.
We have Noah Short watching us, Army's slotback, senior slotback. Thanks, Noah. Thanks really appreciate the words, and all the best to you guys on Friday night against Tarleton State. Cuthbert, we'll go to you with your predictions.
All right, I'm going to do the best I can to keep this brief.
Wait a second.
Listen, I've got a little bit of a side hustle here. I work with the great gentleman over at Thank God for Football out of the Greenville Sports Media. Look them up on Twitter. I do the American Conference, like reporting and predictions and recaps and whatnot. So I have done quite a bit of deep diving into the schedule this year for all teams across the American. And I can tell you right now, absolutely our floor is going to be 7 wins. I think we are probably going to be closer to 8, 9 with a puncher's chance at 10. The biggest game of the year, well, every week is the biggest game of the year. I've circled Tarleton State twice. This is a legit team. We saw what they did to Portland State. Again, Portland State, not necessarily world beaters, but they're a top 10 FCS ranked team. Now, I'm a firm believer that the American Conference is, in fact, the best G5 conference in the nation, but unfortunately, it's also one of the most unbalanced, right? When you got Army and Navy and Memphis and Tulane, potentially UTSA, potentially USF, it's a very, very top-heavy conference. So, we are really, really good, but I'm fairly certain Tarleton State could beat some of the other teams on Army's schedule this year. This is not going to be a gimme game. This is not Lehigh. This is not Morgan State or Mercer. No disrespect to any of those fine programs. I do think we're going to get the W at Mikey on Friday. Then we got Kansas State. It is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and just mark that in for an L. We got North Texas. They lost their 2 best offensive players. They didn't have any defense last year. They got a new defensive coordinator. That's great, but the offense is not going to be what it was. That's going to be a W. We got ECU. ECU looks like they're going to be really, really good this year. We're playing them at home. It's a tough place to play. It's a Thursday night game. It's going to be packed. But the 2 weeks before that, ECU is playing NC State and BYU, and there's no way they're going to be able to prepare for the Army offense when they've got NC State, an in-state hated rival, and BYU in the 2 weeks leading up to that. So both teams are going to be on short rest, and we are going to be traveling into hostile territory, but I think that we're going to have the edge on that game. UAB, I'm sorry, Dilfer, it's a dumpster fire. Charlotte, I got a soft spot in my heart for Charlotte. The fans love them, but no, they're just not quite there yet. We're going to go down to Tulane. Tulane, they lost their star QB. They lost their star running back. Unfortunately, they kept their blue chip head coach. I don't want to say we're going to lose that one, but it's going to be a tough one. I'll say that. We got Air Force. It's going to be a coin flip. Best of times, worst of times. CIC games are always coin flips. Temple, we're going to crush them. Tulsa, they got new coach, Trey Lamb. I think he's a really, really great hire. I think he is actually going to do really great things out at Tulsa, but this is his first year, and those great things are not going to be coming this year. That's going to be a walkover. We got UTSA. Everybody's saying UTSA is supposed to be so, so good this year. Frank Harris is finally gone. They're unbelievable when they're playing at the Alamo Dome, and we are playing them at the Alamo Dome, but we're 4-1 against them over the past 6 years. And I'm not positive that they're going to be holding up all the way through the entire season. I think we beat UTSA. And then last but not least, we've got Navy. If we make the American Conference Championship again, which I think we very well might, I think we lose that game. I think if either team makes that conference championship game, they lose the following week. And I will tell you right now, as good as Navy is going to be and all of the expectations and all the spotlights and Horvath, he is not big enough to make it through the season healthy. He couldn't do it last year. He's certainly not going to do it this year. There's too much of a target on his back because everyone is looking at him. And look, he is super talented, and that is a fantastic offense that he fits perfectly into what Brian Newberry has designed. Tesga's coming back. Navy is going to be very, very good. But I don't think that they're going to be able to hold up along the stretch. And my craziest hot take is when Tulane plays Memphis, whoever loses, that team is going to make the American Conference Championship.
Wow.
Go Army.
That's the best 2-minute prediction reel That I mean, I'm going to cut that up and send it to you, Cuthbert. After that, that was super impressive.
I got to ask you a question now. Whoever loses, how do they make
Yes.
the?
Because look, you got to think about it like this: in 2024. So I want to make sure I get this right. Memphis beat Tulane. Tulane beat Navy. Navy beat Army. Army beat Tulane. And so I think that we're going to see a similar A beats B, beats C, beats D, who also beat A, sort of ring around the rosy in the American Conference. So my prediction is Memphis and Tulane are going to play, and whoever wins is not going to make the American Conference Championship this year. Bookmark it.
Okay.
I don't know if I could follow that, to be honest with you. I was just going to say, the American Conference, I'm going to disagree with you, Cuthbert. It is not the best group of 5 conference, in my opinion. I think the Sun Belt is better. But I think just because, like, Army last year kind of steamrolled at the beginning against the lower tier teams, I think toughness counts in football. And I think Army is – they will – They take the will out of some of these American Conference teams. The American Conference teams also. You talked about the new quarterbacks, right? I mean, the new coaches in the league. There's also a lot of transfer quarterbacks always in the American Conference, so you really don't know who. Some teams have multiple transfer quarterbacks on their roster. Who's going to be the starter? I know the East Carolina second stringer last year, wasn't he at Michigan State? And he rallied Army in the second half a little bit when East Carolina was at Michie Stadium. I just think Army, their league schedule, they're at least going to have 5 league wins, at least 5. If they can beat Air Force, if they beat Tarleton State, that's 7. Then I think they can win 8 games. Yeah, I think you guys are right around 7, 8 wins. We'll have to see how the offense pans out. If there's significant injury on offense, especially on the skill position players, it could be a factor. You lose one of your top running backs, you lose your starting quarterback, then who knows? Then we're going to have to revisit our predictions. But I think 8-4 sounds pretty good. I think they'll definitely can be a bowl team. They definitely can be a bowl team. You can definitely get, like I say, 4 or 5 wins minimum probably on your league schedule. You beat Tarleton State, you get that, you secure that bowl. You don't go to the Independence Bowl this year. You'll have those kind of ties. Maybe you go to some place different that Army hasn't been in their past. And I think will be a bowl team. The defense is going to be huge. Like last year, the defense was a top 10 defense this year. If they can replicate even close to that, you're looking at 7 or 8 wins. And we'll see how the CIC games go. I don't know if you guys saw. Real quick, we had Seth. You actually took the video. Believe it or not, you did a great job, Seth. You did a great job when you were doing the freshmen coming off the field after their first practice. I saw the date, the Navy game on the T-shirt, on the sleeve of an Army player's T-shirt. I think it's 12/13/25. Now they have a bad taste in their mouth, of course, not keeping the CIC trophy. And Navy winning it last year. Navy did it in pretty emphatic fashion. They deserved to win. They deserved to win. But I think now if the roles are changing, like you said, Cuthbert, maybe the roles are changing a little bit. You got to keep your mind. You got to keep your foot off the little bit of the gas. Beat Navy's everywhere. We get it. This team, these captains keep this team together week by week, game by game, and let's see if they could. I don't really. Kansas State. Was Kansas State that impressive against Iowa State's a good opponent, a top 25 opponent?
We don't know yet, but we have to see how the season plays out. But they looked like 2 evenly matched teams. It came down to the end. Who knows? I mean,
we don't
see
know how they look against North Dakota.
We don't know if Tarleton State's any good or not. We know they won 42-0, but we don't know if Portland is decent or not. The season, last year we went to the Florida Atlantic game. We were all worried. Are they going to lose to Florida Atlantic? They dominated them, and that's known.
If the defense can hang in there, I think maybe we'll see another fourth quarter game against a Power 4 conference, and maybe they leave Manhattan, Kansas with a W. I know the percentages are probably going to say 75% Kansas State wins or maybe higher. We'll see. If they can get past Cuthbert, it's a great point. Tarleton State's a big test. They put, that game was 14-0 at halftime. I think I looked up. I was on assignment yesterday, and this finals 42-0. They scored pretty quickly. They scored on defense. They seem to be a pretty set. Did you see the game or no?
I did not know. I read about it.
Now, I don't know how fast of a team they're going to be. I'm assuming they're going to have a lot of good skill position players, and
the running back is extremely fast. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Here we go.
Villanova was ranked 4th in the FCS when they came into Army last year, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, they didn't play Villanova last year. I'm not
2
sure.
years ago. 2 years ago, they were 4th, and Army beat them bad. So, I mean, it's a different level. Having said that, Appalachian State beat Michigan, right? We all know that. So anything can happen, and we're not Michigan. So
Seth's going way back, and I like it. I like it.
You know, I know my history, and I agree with these guys. I think the American is the best group of 5 conference.
You know what?
That's right. That's right.
Guys, if Army played in the Sun Belt, you would say Sun Belt is the best group.
Of course, Army would be in it. That's the straw that would break the camel's back in that direction.
So,
but in the meantime, it's the American.
The American Conference. They got rid of the other A, so it's just the AC right now. And Army
all get to save a character on Twitter. It's fantastic.
And here's the thing too. Army is the defending. They haven't lost an American Conference game since they went 8-0 last year. They won the championship game. They're 9-0. They are the defending American Conference champions. I don't think I said that enough during this podcast, but yeah, they're ready to go. The comments now are all of a sudden coming in. They're great. Curtis Harris.
Just one quick fantastic piece of trivia. Once Army wins a single American Conference game this year, they will have surpassed their total number of conference victories for the 8 years or the 6 years that they were in Conference USA. So in 1 year and what I believe will be one game, they will have surpassed their conference win total for the entire span of them being in Conference USA. So
let me just say this: I was a season ticket holder back then, as I have for many decades now, and Army had a cornerback who was 5'6" or 5'7", playing it during some of those years. That doesn't happen anymore at West Point. That's where size matters, and it's a different world right now. And plus, they had a offensive strategy that was. They thought they could pound the ball down everybody's throat, and you couldn't with smaller guys. Maybe now they could. Back then they couldn't.
Yeah, I don't like talking about those days, man. I covered a few games back then, and I covered some of the few wins that Army had during that time. So we appreciate everybody joining us. Can't thank you enough. We have almost 1,200 people watching. That's crazy. Thanks so much tonight. Check our Black Knight Nation website out. I had a story on, like I said, Ethan Washington being out for the year. I'm going to write a story on Dwayne Coleman, a feature story on Dwayne Coleman. Crank out some feature stories, hopefully before Friday night. Seth's going to cover the Coach Monken's press conference on Tuesday. If you guys will listen to Coach Monken's weekly This Week in Army Football, I guess I'm going to do them a programming note. It's moved to Mondays now. So tomorrow night, if you're watching this now, you can listen to Jeff Monken's, This Week in Army Football, and maybe he'll have some more insight on the season. And check out our YouTube page. Like I said, lots of clips, lots of shorts. I'm going to post this clip from Cuthbert and throw it right on there where he's giving his prediction on the Army schedule. God, that was great. So, Cuthbert, I'll send it to you if I have permission from you to post it on our YouTube channel.
Put it out there, man. Put it out there.
There you go. You want a breakdown. That's the breakdown right there. Better than I can do.
And I forgot to even mention that even though we're playing Air Force and the CIC games are coin flips and the best of times or worst of times, our starting quarterback this year is 1-0 against Air Force. I forgot to even get that in.
Point taken, man. You were flying this, certainly. Guys, I may post some also. We may have a guest or two during the week, maybe an Army player, maybe a former Army player. Not going to promise anything, but we're going to do our best to give you the best coverage that we can of the Army football program. Can't wait. We're a couple nights away, couple sleeps away from the season start. And Seth will be at the opener at Tarleton State I'll be in attendance. We have a new photographer that we're really excited about. So we'll be there giving you the best coverage that we can of this Army football team. We thank everybody for watching. We thank players for watching. We thank the parents for watching. We thank the fans for watching. And I thank Cuthbert Hutton and I thank Seth Mendelson for joining us tonight. This has been the 2025 Army football preview, and we'll see you soon. And we'll be talking Black Knights football very shortly with you guys. Thank you so much.
Go Army.
Beat 'em.